In this video, we are going to configure the LSP client that is built into Neovim. And this will basically facilitate features like go to definition, find references, hover code completion, renaming, and so on. And to get those features to work in Neovim, we do need to configure some things, and we can use the LSP config plugin for that. I will be linking this repository in the description box, so you can search for that in the description box. But if we scroll down to the quick start section, or not the quick start, the install section, it does say that you need Neovim version 0.6 or the nightly version, which is the development version. You need either one of those to make to make LSP the LSP client work. And if you have installed this, then all you need to do is just copy this snippet here, and install it inside of the config file for your plugin manager. So we're using Packer, so you can go to your Packer config file and then paste the plugin there, and then reload and run Packer sync. So that is installed successfully. And then what we want to do is basically install a language server. So we're going to follow along with the example that they give here. Pyrite, I use Pyrite myself for Python development. So yeah, Pyrite is a language server for Python, and you can install it using npm. So if I open up a terminal, you do need npm installed, of course, if you want to install stuff with npm. And then all you need to do is just install the language server globally like this, and then it will install. And after you install the language server, then you need to set up the actual server. And to do that, here they give a quick a small example. So you can run use require and then lspconfig dot the language server and then setup. And then in between the setup table, you can override the default values for the options that they provide. But if we scroll down to key bindings and completion, there's a code block that we can copy paste, which is this part here. We can just copy paste that right there and create a new module inside of our Lua directory. So we are going to call this module lsp config, and then the config file itself, we're gonna name language servers.lua, because I'm gonna actually put several config files inside of the lsp config module, and you will see in a minute what else we are going to add here. But the first thing that we need to add is this, what we just copied. We do need to delete the first and the last line, because that's only needed if you're copy pasting this inside of a Vim script file, but we're using Lua, so no need for that. And here, what we can see is the configurations that they have set up for us. This is an unattached function for the different key bindings for the LSP functions. So, for example, you can press G, capital D for declaration, GD for definition, and we will take a look at some of these after we have set this up properly. I don't use anything, not everything, I mean. So, for example, the workspace functions I don't really use. So I can delete that. Actually, buff declaration I also don't really use, because it's not implemented for every language server. I prefer to use the definition in case I do need it. So I can delete that one. And yeah, you can read more about every function if you call for the vim.lsp help, where you can just search for every function that you want to know more about, and then it will provide some documentation for it. But yeah, let's just continue with the other parts of this config file. So here it says, if we read the comment, use a loop, conveniently call setup on multiple servers and map buffer local key bindings. So this here at the top, when the language server attaches. So here, this is the list of language servers that they put as an example. So we can delete these two here because we're only using Pyrite in this video. And then here it loops through the language servers, and then it attaches these key bindings when we open up a buffer. So yeah, that's it for the config file. Now we can go to our main config file and then add the LSP config module, and then specifically language servers. Yeah, so like this. And what we can do now is check if everything is working. So what I'm going to do is open up a new terminal, and I go to dev, and then do I have, yeah, I can go to test, and then do, let's call this test.py, and see if it works. So we can run the lsp info command to see. Yeah, so here you can see that it detected that this is a Python file, and it has attached one client to the buffer, which is the Pyrite server. So everything is working correctly, but there's still some stuff that we need to enable, like auto-completion, because Neovim doesn't have built-in auto-completion built into the text editor. We need to actually install another plugin that takes care of that, and we'll do that in a little bit. What I want to show you first is an example of using these key bindings, and for that I am going to what am I going to do? I'm going to my qt config file, which is the window manager that I'm using, just to show you how the some of the what is it, LSP function works. So if I, for example, open up my config.py, uh, yeah, my config.py file, then I can go to, for example, group, and if I press GD, it will go to the definition of this class. So you can see the implementation to navigate through your code base. So that's an example of how you can use this, and yeah, you can just use you can just play around with these functions to see what each of these does. And what else have I? Yeah, oh yeah, diagnostics. I haven't showed you diagnostics. So if I open up the what is it, the config file again, um, here you can see on this line where I'm currently on, it shows that widget defaults is not accessed. So that's basically just a warning that it gives us all provided to us through the LSP client. So this is pretty nice. There's a bunch of more features that we want to enable now, which is the auto completion. Because now, if we, for example, type def, which is how to define a Python function, it doesn't give us any completion items, and that's what we want to add now with the where is it? The Neovim completion plugin. So this plugin we need to install to enable auto completion. But if we go back to lspconfig, the repository for lspconfig, they have a section for auto completion, and they basically provide us an example to set everything up using the Neovim completion plugin that I just showed you. So what we need to do is copy paste this part right here, which is the completion plugin and some a source for snippets. And if we go back to our packer config file, which is here, then we can paste it below. Let me format this, reload, and then run packer sync. Yeah, so we installed those 4 plugins. And what we can do now is copy paste. Let's see what we need to do. Yeah, so from this part, which is for the completion engine. This is a little bit slow. Okay, yeah, so copy paste that, and we can add this. Actually, we need to add it here in our LSP config module. Oh, and we can call this like CMP completion or Neovim CMP .lua, and then we paste it right there. And yeah, so this here we list out the sources for the snippets, and these are some mappings for to navigate through your completion items. And here they just import the actual plugins. Now, if we go to our main config file again in the .lua, then we can then we can start adding it to the config file. What did I name it? CMP. Yeah, so that, like that. And I think that should work out of the box. Oh, no, there's one thing that I forgot to add, which is this right here. We want to add some additional capabilities supported by the completion plugin. And this right here goes to the language service config file. So let me delete those comments, and then what we can do is paste it right here, add additional capabilities for the supported by the completion plugin, and then we want to have that for every server, so we can put that inside the loop. Yeah, so that should work. Let me reload to see if I have any problems. There's nothing wrong. And then if I want to go to my test folder. Yeah, and then do test.py, and we can start testing if the completion works. So hopefully this will work. Yeah, so I immediately get the completion items for Python. So def f can do stuff like this, return and test the diagnostics. Hello. Yeah, diagnostics is also working fine. Can do class. You can see that the completion is working. So yeah, everything is set up correctly. Now, one thing that I want to add is how to make the completion item menu. So this right here, a little bit more, what is it, aesthetic by adding icons here. Not that there's something specifically wrong with just this, but I like to have icons inside of the completion menu. And the way we can do that is by installing another plugin, which is called lspkind. And this adds vscode-like pictograms for the Neovim LSP completion items. Now what we need to do is, they don't have a snippet for the plugin, so we just gonna copy paste from the URL above. And what we need to do is go to our packer config again, packer config file, which is this here, and we can just add that here below. Use, reload the file, and then run packer sync. Yeah, so that is installed. And what we can do now, if we scroll down to the bottom to option number 2, we can basically copy paste this here and add it inside of our completion setup that we just installed. So this right here. And we can paste it here below at the bottom. I'm gonna add a comma at the end. Those 3 dots I'm gonna delete. And this is something else that we need to do. Oh yeah, one thing that I want to add here with text, so do not show text alongside icons. I do want to show text alongside the icons, so I'm going to change this to true and delete that comment. And we also, of course, need to import the actual plugin, which I will just import here at the top. Save this file and see if everything is working. So let me reopen this file. And now if you write class, yeah, so now instead of only text, we also have some nice icons. So that is pretty nice. Yeah, so that is basically it for this video. One thing that I still want to show you is how to look for other, what is it? Language servers. I think it should be somewhere here. Yeah, this is just this link here. I will be putting this in the description box as well. But if you want to find it for yourself, if you go back to the lspconfig repository and you scroll down to the bottom, then there is the last part where you can where there's a link to the server configurations markdown file or page. You can click on that, and that will bring you to the page that I just showed you here. And here's a list of all the LSP configs that are included. So, for example, if we go to HTML, so the HTML language server can also be installed using npm. And so, for example, if you run this, yeah, sorry, I actually need to be sudo to install this, but I have this plugin already installed. So what I'm going to show you is how you could add this to your server, into your list of servers. So here, this is the snippet to enable the language, but we just need that part, the HTML part, because that's the name of the server. And if we go to the, let's see, we need to go to our language service config file, and then you can just add this right here, the HTML server. And then I'm going to close this. What I'm going to do is do v-index.html. Oh, that is not what I wanted to do. And we can run lsp info to see if the client, if it is actually attached. So yeah, it is attached. And now what we can do is, for example, do doc type, and this is also working. Or should I do it like this? What is it? Yeah, so it's working. We need some other plugins to actually do the auto closing for text, but we will be taking a look at that in another video. So this is it for this video. We have LSP enabled for Neovim, and yeah, you can install the language servers that you want by going to the list here to set it up according to your needs. And in the next video, we're gonna continue by improving the UI of Neovim. So we're going to add a status bar or a status line at the bottom, tabs at the top, or like buffer tabs, so we can navigate a little bit easier through the buffers that we have open. There's a plugin for notifications. We're also going to set up tree setters so we have better syntax highlighting, because if you take a look at the, for example, the Python file I was in earlier, you can see that the syntax highlighting is quite horrible. is basically non-existent. But yeah, we want to fix that as well with tree sitter. And yeah, so make sure you can watch that if you want to set that up as well, and if you're not sure how to do that. Um, Also, don't forget to subscribe, like this video, comment any suggestions that you want to see or improvements. And yeah,